everything of ourselves. So we social work, if we speak to social work equal professional social work, we can't work for those other people. Think more. The world, there are no professional social workers. Thank you very much.
I hope the audience enjoy your presentation. And now I will open the floor for questions. May I invite Professor Stark and Professor Lakshmi on stage, because I guess there will be many questions, because I guess you are not hungry anymore. Because you are enjoying hearing from knowledgeable speakers. Any questions?
Madam? Yeah, I just would like to congratulate the lecturers, the speakers, for very challenging and wise presentations. And I would like to start with the last speaker, because I admire those now Professor Akimoto. Very wise. Okay. And I think I agree with you. It's true that social work and social welfare is beyond professional social work, because the field of social welfare is a vast field. It involves everybody. It involves all professions, all disciplines. So you don't have the monopoly of social work and social welfare. That's true. I agree with that. And I would like to connect it with that Yolanda experience. By the way, I'm Yolanda Yaldama from the Philippines. I think that the point of Dr. Akimoto was seen during the Great Typhoon, Typhoon Haiyan, because during the typhoon, the first responders, before international humanitarian organizations came, a week later, the first responders were the local people themselves. They helped themselves, and the local organizations from nearby provinces. And many of them are not social workers. So they are members of what we call the Provincial Development Risk Reduction and Management Council. So they belong to different professions, different disciplines, and some of them are volunteers, common people. People who have not even studied. They came and rushed to the typhoon area. The health professionals, they did first aid. The elders, they talked, they cleared the roads. So the first responders were the local people themselves. And so I agree with Dr. Starr that we social workers, when we go to the communities, we should not act as experts, because the people are experts themselves. And I agree that when we work, we don't go there as experts, but we work with the local communities. We work with the people, we mobilize the people. We are catalysts. And if you look at the great transformers, for example, in India, Gandhi is only one. He was able to mobilize people. You don't have to be many in order to mobilize people to change society. But I would like also to comment on the comparison, because I think I have to do this. You mentioned about one community revolving themselves, another one just waiting for the humanitarian aid until now. That's true, very true. But I think it's more complicated than that. Yeah, because those communities, they cannot rebuild their homes in the original area. because it has been declared danger zone. So they cannot. And they cannot just transfer to other areas because there are complications. They have to look for better area. They have to look for right-of-way and all those political processes, bureaucratic processes. And this is being complicated with the politics because the local government of Tacloban, of that area, is not of the same party as the national government. So the release of funds for those areas has been delayed and delayed. But while in other rural areas, the rebuilding process has been started. But mind you, even without aid from the outside, people are starting to rebuild themselves. No? Because right after the typhoon, we sent our students to work with local organizations. We also faculty, we went to the different islands. So that's the situation. But still, I think we still need professional social workers. But I do agree that we don't have the monopoly. We have to work with other people. We have to mobilize communities. Okay, thank you.
That was very interesting, and I just want to respond by saying, particularly with your example with the Philippines, and to draw an analogy with the young man from Uganda, and to say that one of the really big tasks for social work is to work around that issue of political obstacles, of bureaucracy. And one of our skills is helping people to do that. So I take on board the further explanation about the complexity about working in that kind of situation. But I also think we need to be critical of some of the obstacles that we actually face.
I think Professor Tatsu's presentation has tickled us all with his very, what should I say, maybe irritating some of us also, with his sense of humor. And I think what he said is very important, that we are looking at such a large looming crisis and we are small. But I very much appreciate what, I'm sorry I don't know your name, our colleague from Philippines, she said that we never work alone. And at least in the Asian region, I can tell you from my experience of India, we have always worked with the community, and in fact in the 70s, through the College of Social Work that is attached to Bombay University, we even started skill training for youth, young people who had studied very little, they were semi-literate, and also the tribal areas. We started training in the 70s, what we later called para-professional training, which of course could also be criticized, that why are we using the term para-professional, because they are not our aides or whatever, they are social workers in their own right. But we've always been looked at ourselves as enablers and catalysts, and not really, imposing our views on people or whatever. I mean, so professional definitely is an issue. Do we want to use the term professional, especially if we are looking at the profession in our region? Because that also is a colonial import. Professionalization, if we see historically, is a colonial import. Professionalization of medicine. In medicine, we have local people who always practice medicine. It's the professionalization of medicine that brought in the doctors, the institutions. So we are all part of that world. I think what we need to see is that with a professional, we like you said, we are not mobilizing social work, and we should not. And especially in our region, we have to work with people themselves, people at the grassroots, and we are only the enablers, the facilitators, the catalysts who are required, who should be bringing the voices of the people to the top, to the politicians, to policymakers. And we are just part of that entire process. That's all. But I would also like to ask you, because you talked of rejecting the definition, but you didn't elaborate on it. See, it is not an IF definition. The process was initiated by the international organization, but it went through a series of consultations globally, through the global conferences, in different fora. So it is not an IF definition. It is accepted as a global definition with, of course, a corollary that to be amplified at the regional level. So.
Well, to tell the truth, I have to confess that definition revision effort was initiated grandpa by Abasu. I was one of the people because I was a president. But I'm talking about the final product. And I'm now not the president of Abasu anymore. I have a freedom of academy or what you call it. I mean, I'm just one piece of a professor. I have a freedom to say whatever it is, and I can never accept that first few words. Social work is a profession. Social work must be a profession. No. Many people have been doing a lot. And we actually conducted, in order to insist this kind of idea, we conducted various researches actually. And one of them was titled Professional Social Work and Functional Alternatives. And one research paper by Malaysia clearly wrote, they conducted some research and found that in many cases, non-professional social workers' work was better. Not better means effective or more satisfactory. Not of course the majority would be opposite way, but and also we have been conducting the Buddhism social work in this region. There are more than 10 Buddhist countries whose populations over majority, 70% to 80% of populations are Buddhist. And the last two weeks ago, we 5 country professors and Buddhist monks gathered in Tokyo. And they also conducted very serious research. And I'm afraid many of them, or some of them, may not be actually cautious of the word of profession. Of course, profession can have various meanings. The services have to be very high in quality, and those services must be publicly assured. But more basically speaking, profession is one occupation, one category of occupation. For example, Buddhist monks can never work for money, for job, for their livelihood. Actually, in this country, Achan or Soba country took me to one Buddhist university. They said, they have the Wilson model professional social work education data course. And the contents are almost the same. But that leader of that division, social work division, said the monks who studied those courses and passed that exam, license exam, could not become professional social workers. Even they passed. I heard the same in Vietnam too. You know why? They have to this work in order to work. But the work itself would be the same. That's my response.
Any more questions?
Yes, I'm a social worker, and I had to go through professional training to keep educators in a job, I think. Perhaps that's too cynical, but I think we need to think about why that word profession is in there. And it's to say there is a certain standard of qualification to give some credibility so that people who use the services of social workers have actually some assurance that the people that they're dealing with have some skills and are not quacks. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Parinda. I am an MSW student at Thammasat University. I have a quick question to Professor Ruth Starr. What do you mean when you say social worker is not social administrator? Please kindly explain this statement. Thank you.
I felt the need to reaffirm that a social worker is not a social administrator. Following the discussions that we've been having around how social workers were being used in the refugee crisis in Europe. And as refugees were coming through the train stations in Munich and in Vienna, social workers were being asked to sit down at a table and look and say, write papers and give people documentation. That to me is a social administrator. I do not think that is how, I think anybody can do that virtually, but not everybody can do social work. And social work is about working with people through change. That is certainly our definition of social work. And those are the skills that I think that we have to emphasize in terms of helping other people understand what our role is. And it is very different from social administration. Social administration is about social protection laws, making sure people have benefits, welfare benefits, health systems, that kind of stuff. I don't do that, I work with people.
Just wanted to add here that maybe we could distinguish between social administration and administrator and social work administrator. Because what Ruth is talking about is when we get co-opted by the government and we are working on behalf of the government and we are fixed into certain roles that the government wants us to play, you know, guiding people, registration, you know, whatever. But a social work administrator would be more than that. And I can just give you a very quick example. My former director, who was the first president of APASWE, you may have heard her name, Dr. Armaiti Desai. She was the vice principal of College of Social Work, Nirmala Niketan, then she became the director of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and then she was invited to be the chairperson of the University Grants Commission, a government body that regulated higher education in the country, that regulates higher education in the country. And she spent, I think, 10 years in that role, and she always told us that social work skills and knowledge helped her in her performance at the UGC level. And she was extremely successful because she introduced very sensitive programs. She introduced administrator training for women, because we have what are called women registrars in university systems, and there were hardly any women. So she started training for women to become administrators in the university system, and she started many other gender-sensitive programs, women's studies units in the different universities, etc. So she had always tells us that social work really helped her to be a better administrator at that level. So I thought I'd just give you that living example. And I'm sure many of you are administrators in different systems and have experienced it.
I am Hamid Ansari from SOS Enterprise from Iran. I think what Professor Akimoto was trying to say is to make social work a value in the society and rely on the public force for accomplishing a mission, which is completely true. But just relying on public force is like making a giant which is blind. You need eyes for that, and I think professional social work could do the job to make this giant see and find a target. I think both of them is required, and we have been kind of successful in just arranging groups in public to do the social work. But I think we still need professional training, because you cannot make it a value to make IC in the society. If everybody wants to go and make IC, for sure it will be an unsuccessful job. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Okay. Okay, finally, we come to the end of our presentation. I would like to say thanks again to all of the speakers for excellent presentation and respond to questions, and to all you all for active participation. Hopefully, the presentation will be beneficial for everyone. Thank you for your attention and
I would like to ask our speakers to stay on the stage as Professor Anyamani is coming to give them little souvenir. First, Professor Nat Kani. before we move on to lunch, we have a few announcements to make, and I look forward to my colleague.
Thank you very much, and I ask your continued patience for just a few moments longer. First, I would like to announce that poster presentations will be continuing in the upper level of the hallway. If you have not had a chance to visit the poster presentations, we kindly request that you do so. Additionally, for those who would like copies of today's presentations and presentations throughout the conference, all keynote speaker and invited speaker presentations and materials will be uploaded to the website. That is www.thaitaspi.org. Thaitaspi.org, spelled THAITASWE.org. Furthermore, lunch will be held in the cellar room. Lunch will be held in the cellar room until 1:45 today. For today, there are no coupons, but you must have your tag. In order to eat lunch, you must bring your tag, which will be held in the cellar room until 1:45. Also, we'd like to make a correction to today's agenda. The afternoon sessions will begin again at 1:45. Afternoon sessions will begin again at 1:45. Also, for this evening, those who are attending the gala dinner, we kindly request you meet in the hotel lobby at 5:45. For those attending the gala dinner, please meet in the lobby at 5:45. We will leave at 6 p.m. sharp. There is no dress code required. And for those who have not registered but would like to do so, you can at the back of the room. There is a table at the back of the room. So those who have not registered for the gala dinner but would like to do so, you can register now at the back of the room. Furthermore, all invited speakers who have not yet received reimbursement for their plane ticket, please see the financial desk before 3 p.m. This includes Mr. Boar Chun, Professor Bruce Stark, Professor Inyang Han, Dr. Julie King, Dr. Nikki Edward, and Ms. Iti Thay. Please see the financial desk. It's just outside on the right-hand side, and you must bring your plane ticket as well. You must bring your plane ticket as well. Finally, certificates for participation in this conference will be issued tomorrow. But for those who are departing before the conference's end, we please ask that you inform the registration desk about your departure time, and we will issue your certificate before your respective departure dates. Thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy lunch.
เพิ่งมาวันนี้หนูก็ไม่รู้เรื่องเลย
แชทชานนท์โทรหาไม่รับทำไมโทรมาไหนพี่เดี๋ยวจะไม่อยู่นะคะ เดี๋ยวมารับงานต่อจะกลับมาเดี๋ยวมา